Joining me now is the Democratic nominee for one of the most important Senate races this cycle, former North Carolina Governor Roy Cooper. Governor Cooper, welcome back to Pod Save America.
I'm glad to be with you, Dan. Thanks a lot.
It's been a while, so it's great to have you on here. North Carolina, a state near and dear to my heart, has been breaking Democratic hearts for a long time. It's been since 2008, since a Democrat won a Senate seat there. Talk to me about why you believe 2026 is going to be different than all the other cycles that have emotionally traumatized so many Democrats around the country and in North Carolina, I assume.
Well, Dan, I've been having to convince people that we are having a tough race because people ask me what my biggest fear is, and that a lot of people have put this race in the check mark win column. And you and I know the history of North Carolina. Just because I have a lead in the polls doesn't mean this race isn't going to be very close. We've seen so many Democratic candidates have a lead until they don't. And we see Republican money pouring into this state at the end, and we see great Democratic candidates lose by a couple of points. And as you know, it's been 2008 since we won a seat. Almost 40 years, we've only had two Democrats, and both of them served one term. So this is going to be a close race. I think this is different because people are hurting now. I don't think I've seen it like this because I've been out on my Make Stuff Cost Less tour. People are telling me that there's just too much month at the end of the money for them. Their paychecks just are not keeping up with the cost of living, and they are frustrated, and they recognize that Washington, D.C. is in chaos, that this president and administration promised them that day one, the cost of living would be on top of the list. And not only has it not been, they've actively hurt people's chances in that we've seen these chaotic tariffs add cost to everything. We've seen this war in Iran increase costs. We've seen this one big beautiful bill that ripped health care away from people and given the tax breaks to the billionaires. People are frustrated. And at the end of the day, I think they know that I will be a senator who will put the people first, not the billionaires. And we know that my opponent, Michael Whatley, will do and say whatever this president tells him to do and say. And we know at the end of the day that a lot of money is going to come into North Carolina, but we're going to win this race because we have to. I told my children the other day that my parents left me a better country, but that we had work to do to leave them a better country. And I think all of us need to look within us and say, hey, what can I do to make sure that this country is the kind of country we want to leave to our kids and grandkids? And that's why I'm running for the Senate.
You point out affordability is the number one issue in North Carolina. It's the number one issue all around the country. It's frankly the number one issue in our politics for basically since COVID, as inflation went up. As you mentioned, you were on this tour of North Carolina. Tell me a little about the tour. And can you give me a handful of specific ideas that you would do to help lower people's prices if elected?
Well, the tour, I've been meeting people across North Carolina. We call it the Make Stuff Cost Less tour.
Very clear. Yes.
Yeah. I mean, we hear from Kawana, who's struggling to pay for groceries. She's a teacher. We hear from Meredith, whose kid, Vivi's on Medicaid, and Meredith's scared to death that Washington is going to attack and take away Vivi's health care. Pender's a farmer in rural North Carolina. The tariffs are killing him. So in my policy proposals, you can go to roycooper.com and read our proposals on what we're proposing to do to make stuff cost less. You can also help us out. You can also volunteer. We need people to help us in this campaign. But first, we've got to work with Republicans, and I believe there'll be some who will be ready to work with us on taking back the legislative branch's constitutional authority here. Checks and balances are critical. So taking them back on trade and tariffs. We got to roll back these chaotic tariffs, and I think immediately that helps to reduce the cost of living. We got to restore the health care cuts that have really wreaked havoc on people's pocketbooks and people's lives, their health. We've got to make sure that we are investing in education across the board. I believe that when you look at all of the proposals that we have made, like a child care tax credit, because I'm hearing from people about child care going through the roof and they're having to make hard decisions about whether one parent's going to work. We just need a Washington focused on people and not tax breaks for the corporations. And I think that we can make a difference. Government that works can make a difference for people and help them have a paycheck that keeps up with the cost of living.
There's been a lot of talk about groceries and gas, of course, and gas because of the Iran war, but is utility prices. And one of the things driving up utility prices is data centers. What would you do with data centers to either help lower the cost of electricity, slow the build out of these? Like, how are you thinking about this sort of mad rush to build as many data centers as possible?
It's part of my policy proposals is that they must pay for their own energy. Other consumers should not have to bear any cost from data centers. And we should encourage them to create their own energy sources and connect them to the grid. And I think many of them are ready to step up and do that. Of course, communities have to have input as to whether these are built there or not. But I think that is critical because we now have a demand for power unlike anything we've ever seen. And we have a Congress and a president in Washington that has wiped away the gains that we made in clean energy that would have helped add energy to the grid. That's all been wiped away during the last couple of years. So we have a real challenge on our hands. So I think they have to make sure that they pay for their own.
Your opponent, Michael Whatley, is not particularly well known to a lot of people around the country. He's not sort of one of these, MAGA bad guys like a Ken Paxton or a Herschel Walker or a Dr. Oz in previous elections. I understand there's some debate about his North Carolina roots and that he failed to be able to name any members of your NHL Stanley Cup championship team down there. But what should voters either in North Carolina or around the country who want to help your campaign know about Michael Whatley and who he is and what he would do?
Well, first, he's been a Washington, D.C. insider for years. He was a big oil and utility company lobbyist. He worked to be able to raise prices for oil companies and raise utility rates for utility companies. He still owns stock in those. And he served as chair of the Republican National Committee, as co-chair, pushed there by President Trump. And we're seeing that he's able to line his own pockets by advocating and encouraging the Iran war, pushing this one big beautiful bill. He owns pharma company stocks, and we know that those have gone up because of this one big beautiful bill. He was also chair of the North Carolina Republican Party and recruited right-wing candidates like Mark Robinson, who's the self-described black Nazi in North Carolina, and stood beside and behind Mark Robinson. He has lied about my record. You mentioned that he's been telling people that he grew up in Blowing Rock, North Carolina. In actuality, he moved to Blowing Rock from Michigan when he was 15 years old. And that I don't mind people coming into North Carolina. Well, you don't have to have grown up in North Carolina. People are full North Carolinians when they move here, but just don't lie about it. But he's lied about my record, and particularly on crime. But then you look at his record on crime. He appointed a convicted child sex predator who served time in prison to a prominent position in the North Carolina Republican Party and stood by him and reappointed him, even though the party debated this. And recently the party has come in and passed a resolution saying we aren't going to have sex predators appointed to positions of prominence anymore. He's also very recently stood by Trump's pardon of all of these J6 insurrectionists, including those who assaulted police officers and including those who went on to commit other crimes, some against children for child sex crimes. That's the kind of record that Michael Whatley has. And as I say, he will do and say whatever this president tells him to do and say. On the other hand, I will be a strong independent senator for North Carolina. I will put the people first. I will try to work with this president when I can. I did my first 4 years as governor. He was president at the same time. I tried to work with him. We had to go through COVID and other things. But I will stand up to him when I need to. And there needs to be a lot of standing up to him right now in Washington. I think the people of North Carolina are going to want that at the end of the day.
You mentioned the attacks on your record on crime. This is in a bunch of their ads. Seems to be their main strategy for trying to defeat you, is to paint you as weak on crime, weak on immigration. They are specifically focusing on some early releases that you granted in your time as governor. What is your response to those attacks? What's the true story here?
Well, first, those stories, there are many lies being told in what they've done, and they've had fact checks that have shown that they just simply are not telling the truth. I'm the only person in this race who's actually prosecuted violent criminals and worked to keep them behind bars, while Michael Whatley has appointed a child sex predator to a prominent position in the North Carolina Republican Party. That's the difference between us on crime. People know my record as Attorney General. They know that as governor, I signed tougher bail laws. They know, too, that I believe in working to prevent crime by investing in early childhood education and in our public schools and in health care and in our communities. I think that's critical. But they believe this is a soft spot. It is not. And I think the people of North Carolina will hear that at the end of the day.
You know, immigration and crime are sort of tied together in Republican rhetoric these days. One of the tasks for a Democratic Senate will be, or just new Democratic senators, is going to be trying to find ways to rein in what is happening with ICE and what the Trump administration is doing with ICE. We just had another person killed by ICE recently. How are you thinking about what you, if you were elected Senate, what you would do with ICE? Like how would you reform it, restrain it? What are you thinking?
Well, first, we need secure borders in this country, and we should deport violent criminals. And this organization should be working to try and do that. But we also don't need what is happening now with people being picked up just because of what they look like, often American citizens being put in danger, shot on the street. It seems to me reasonable that officers who work with ICE should have the same requirements that state, local, and federal law enforcement officers should have. And I think that is something that we need to do, make sure that they have those same requirements.
As we mentioned, your opponent's the former chair of the RNC. A couple of weeks ago, the Supreme Court had a ruling which now will allow the party committees like the RNC and the DNC to spend unlimited funds on behalf on races like yours. How does that ruling affect your race with your opponent being the former chair of the organization that can now spend unlimited money?
This is the worst campaign finance Supreme Court decision since Citizens United. It allows virtually unlimited spending from these joint committees when a candidate and a political party or like the Republican Senatorial Campaign Committee come together. They don't have any limits as they used to have. This puts more power in the hands of the very wealthy, of the billionaires, of the corporations. And I think you're going to see a significant amount of money flowing into races all across the country using this new device. It may affect our race even more than others, being that Whatley has been recently the chair of the Republican National Committee. He knows all the people there. He certainly has been talking about the fact that they're going to use this new tool. We all need to come together and get a grip on campaign finance in this country. We have to find a way to stop this madness. It's too much money in politics. I'll be first in line to find a way to overturn Citizens United But until then, we cannot unilaterally disarm. This takes power away from small donors. And I hope small donors will stand up and say, we're not going to let this happen. We're going to give these candidates even more. RoyCooper.com is a great place to go and to do that, because we need to have a strong voice for everyday people. And this new decision just allows more money into the system. It leads to more corruption. We see open corruption in Washington right now. In fact, my opponent, as I mentioned, owns individual stock. When I ran for governor, I sold all of my individual stock. I have widely held mutual funds. I'm doing that during the campaign. I will do that as a United States Senator, regardless of what the law is, but I will work to pass a law that prohibits members of Congress and high executive officials from trading individual stocks. I'll support a law that stops allowing people to be lobbyists after they serve in Congress. We need to get people to trust the federal government again, and right now people just don't. So we have to elect people not only who will fight to change laws. We're seeing that we have a lot of people who want to change the laws, but nothing ever happens in Washington on this, but who will set examples. And that's what I want to do when I get there. And the way this money is going to come in, I hope it won't affect these elections, because I hope that people will step up and help these candidates. We've got to take back the House. We've got to take back the Senate. We've got to make sure that we come back to the Constitution that the framers intended, where we have true checks and balances, because right now we have leaders in Congress who simply will not stand up to the president. And you need to do that regardless of party. You need to do that, and the branches need to push against each other in order to make this great republic work.
I'll say this for you to make it easier, but the ruling means that the RNC has a lot more money than the DNC. The NRSC has more money than the DSCC. The Republicans have more money than the Democrats. If we are going to, the only way we're going to stay competitive in these races is for people to go to websites like RoyCooper.com and push back, because it's not we can win with grassroots donations. We are not going to match them billionaire for billionaire in this race. So just wanted to lay that out there. I would do that for you to make that pitch easier for you.
You said it better than
Yes.
I think you're right about that, because we can't catch up. The DNC just simply can't catch up before November. So we're going to have help from everyday people out there.
The Democratic Party is in a bit of transition these days, and we have Democratic Socialists winning in New York City and Colorado. We have progressive anti-establishment candidates winning here and there. We also have Roy Cooper's running in North Carolina and Sherrod Brown's running in Ohio. Is there a tent big enough for the party these days? Like, how are you thinking about what's going on in the party? You know, you're a two-term governor, you're an establishment figure. There's this anti-establishment sort of fervor going on. Like, how are you navigating all of this?
Well, I understand why people are frustrated, because government often hasn't worked at the federal level and people are mad. And so I get it. People are paying too much. Things are costing too much out there, and they're frustrated. They don't have health care. They can't afford a place to live. My goodness, they had one bipartisan thing that they did, the housing bill, that just got flipped on its head. That's just so frustrating. But look, I can just tell you what we've done here. I was a Democratic governor for 8 years. I had a Republican legislature for 8 years. And yes, I vetoed a lot of bad legislation, and we fought over a lot of things. But I found ways to work with them on recruiting good paying jobs to our state, to getting paid parental leave, to passing a law to get our power sector to carbon zero by 2050. And finally, got a Republican legislature in a southern state to expand Medicaid, which has made a real difference. And we did that by getting their constituents in these red rural counties to lobby them for it. Because when I would use my contacts with sheriffs in some of these counties when I served as Attorney General, and many of them would complain to me that essentially that a lot of people in their jail were struggling and needed health care. And so they understood that Medicaid expansion would bring more help to their county with medical services and would help keep their rural hospitals open. And when you have a tough on crime Republican sheriff walking the halls lobbying for Medicaid expansion, it's very effective. And so we were able to work together on a common goal to get health care. And these red rural counties have benefited really more than anybody else here. 730,000 people and counting now have health care in North Carolina. And there are ways to work together. We saw it on the housing bill in Washington. We've got to have more people who are willing to sit down at the table, even if they have disparate opinions. When you look at goals, often our goals are shared, even if we are on opposite ends politically. We want a good education for our kids. We want a good paying job. We want clean air and water. We want quality health care. We all want the same things. And we have to be willing to sit down at the table and find ways forwards, find a way to achieve consensus. I did that as governor time and time again. I want to do that in Washington. And I believe that Washington could use a dose of North Carolina common sense. So I'm ready to come and try and provide that, not only from a governor, attorney general perspective, a state legislator perspective, but I practiced law for 18 years and was a managing partner of my small firm for a while. I had to make a payroll. So I have a lot of background that I think I can use in helping to shape legislation, walking across the aisle, trying to find a way forward, because people just want government to work. And right now it's not.
Governor, I think it's a great place to end it. Governor Cooper, thank you so much for joining us, and we'll talk to you again soon.
Thanks, Dan. Appreciate it.